In this video lesson, you will learn about ionic bonding. So in the previous video lesson, you already learned how atoms become ion. So hopefully you remember how to draw the ions. And you remember there are two types of ions. Positive ion, they are called cation. Negative ions, they are called anion. So we're going to look at how these two combine in ionic bonding today. These are the lesson objectives. You can read them yourself. So we will start the lesson. So just to remind you again what compounds mean, if you have just one particle, that is what we call an atom. But if you have two or more atoms joined together, that is what we call a compound. So you can have two or you can have three atoms joined together. Okay, so there are two ways to make compounds. One is called ionic bonding, which is what we are looking at today, and two is called covalent bonding, which we will look at nanti. Okay, so a positively charged ion, a cation, can combine with a negatively charged ion, an anion. So you can see this picture here. This is the cation, this is the anion. They can join together to form what we call a compound, and especially this compound is called an ionic compound. Okay, some examples of this. An example of cation is Na plus. Okay, ya positive can join together with Cl minus. Okay, these two can join together to become NaCl. So Na sodium, Cl is chlorine, sodium chloride. Another example is potassium. Potassium can become a positive ion, can join together with fluorine, which is a negative ion. These two can join together to become Kf. So potassium fluoride. Okay, so those are just some examples of ionic compound. How are they formed? So let's look at example 1 here. Sodium ion Na plus combines with chloride ion Cl minus to form sodium chloride NaCl. Ia punya simbolnya. So here you have sodium atom. Okay, it has electronic structure of 281, and you have chlorine atom. It has a structure of 287. One thing to note again, chlorine kalau jadi ion, namanya tukar jadi chloride. Okay, so it's just the same element, but it's just a change of name. If sodium wants to join together with chlorine to form a compound, what does it do? It gives one electron to chlorine. So sodium, in order to join with chlorine, satu elektron ane dibaginya arah chlorine. So chlorine will get one electron, sodium will lose one electron. So sodium will lose one, chlorine will plus one, jadi 288. Okay. Like I said in the previous lesson, if an atom loses electron, it becomes a positive charge. Sodium jadi positive 1. If an atom gains electron, like chlorine, it becomes negative. So chlorine is negative 1. Okay, so this is what they look like in terms of the ion. So sodium ada plus di sini, sodium ion, chlorine ion ada negative sini, and then they will become NaCl. These are the two ions joined together. Okay, that's how they look like in terms of this electron diagram. Or you can draw only the valency electrons or atomo shell to make the diagram simpler. So what you can do is you can just draw the atomo shell sahaja. Kan sodium ada di 3 shell kan tadi? Macam mana? Chlorine pun ada 3 shell juga, 1, 2, 3. Tapi just to make our life simple, okay, you can simply draw the outermost shell. So you can just ignore the inside shell. Okay. Tidak payah lukis satu, lukis yang di ujung-ujung saja. Okay, shell yang paling luar sekali. Okay, same thing. This one will be given here, and then when you draw the atom, it becomes like this. So before this is 281, this is 287. So you are only drawing 7, and you are only drawing 1, and then this one it becomes 28. This one becomes 288. So this one you draw the 8, this one you draw the 8 electrons in the outermost shell. The ions in the ionic compound are held together by a very strong force called the electrostatic force of attraction. So these ions, ya positif sama negatif kan, they are joined together by a strong force. The bond between them are very strong, and this force is called the electrostatic force of attraction. Plus minus, they are attracted with each other, melekat. Okay. This force it is what forms the ionic bond between the sodium ion and the chloride ion. All ionic compounds form a crystal structure called a giant ionic lattice. So in real life, it's not just these two. Okay, banyak lagi ni ya. So you have another positive ion here, another negative ion here. This one, yeah, sama negative. This one sama positive, negative, positive. Okay, they will all join to form this sort of lattice. This is what we call the lattice structure. So yeah, the plus minus, plus minus, plus minus. So it looks like this, okay, or it looks like that. Okay, this is what we call a lattice lattice structure. Another example of ionic compound is you have magnesium ion Mg2 plus combined with oxide ion O2 minus to form magnesium oxide. So oxide is just another word of oxygen. So when oxygen becomes an ion, it changes its name to oxide. So magnesium 2A2. So here actually there are two more shells inside, tapi we want to make it simple. We only draw the outermost shell saja. Tadi lukis yang ni saja. 2 elektron di luar ni. Oxygen, ya ada 2, 6. So we are only drawing the 6 electrons in the outermost shell. So how does magnesium form an ionic bond joined together with oxygen? So magnesium gives 2 electrons to oxygen. So 2 elektron ni dibaginya ke oxygen. Okay, so magnesium hilang 2, oxygen campur 2, so jadi 2,8. And then magnesium pasal ia hilang 2, ia jadi plus 2. Oxygen pasal ia tambah 2 elektron, ia jadi minus 2. And then the ions look like this and that. Okay, and we are only drawing the outermost electrons. For magnesium, there are 8 now in the outermost electrons. And for oxygen, there are also 8. So that is what they look like. And when they join together, they become magnesium oxide. Example 3, you have calcium ion combined with 2 chloride ions, Cl minus. So chloride is just another name for chlorine to form calcium chloride. So this is a bit different. So this is what calcium atom looks like. It has 2 electrons in the outermost shell, so we only draw 2. And chlorine, you need 2 chlorine for this. Mesti guna 2 for this combination to happen. So here you have the first chlorine and the second chlorine, and both of them have 7 electrons in the outermost shell. So that's why we only draw 7 electrons there. So how does calcium join together with these 2 chlorine? So calcium gives 1 electron to each chlorine atom. So satu dibaginya arah seorang, and then yang lagi satu dibaginya arah yang seorang lagi. So one of this he gives to the chlorine here. One of this he gives to the chlorine here. Okay. So calcium loses 2, hilang 2, dia jadi 2,8. Chlorine tambah 1 jadi 2,8,8. The other chlorine tambah 1 ia jadi 2,8,8. So in terms of the ion, this is what it looks like. Chlorine, because it loses 2, it becomes 2 plus 2, pasal ia hilang 2 elektron. This chlorine gains 1 electron, so minus 1. This chlorine gains 1 electron, so minus 1 as well. Okay. Alright, so that's the end of our lesson. Just remember, what is an ionic bond or what is an ionic compound? In order to make an ionic compound, you need a positive ion and a negative ion. When these two are together, join together, it becomes an ionic compound. Make sure you know how to draw all of this. So how to draw the atom and how to draw its ion. And also make sure you can draw like this as well. You only draw the valency electrons. And also make sure you know these ionic compounds are held together by a force called the electrostatic force of attraction. Then these bonds here, yang lain these are what we call the bonds. And these bonds are basically held together by this force here. And you need to remember, benda ni apa namanya? Namanya is lattice. And that's all for this lesson.